Hello and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. Today we are doing a marker review. If you were here at the end of September, you saw my fine liner review. If you weren't here then, go check that out. I will put it in the iCard up here. Today we are doing the same thing, but comparing all of the different brands of alcohol-based markers that I own. In case you missed my announcement on Thursday, I have made a slight change to my upload schedule. I am still uploading every Tuesday and Thursday. I am still putting out the occasional third bonus video. I'm just no longer restricting which type of content I upload to which day. I am an art channel that happens to also do crafts, tutorials, and product reviews. Subscribe, join the family. Alright, let's get on with it. So, here is the chart we will be looking at. Here's all the brands across the top. We're going to discuss the price. I'm using US dollars just for simplicity. We're going to look at the nibs that it comes with. I'm going to talk a little bit about the marker design. I'm going to talk about refills. We're going to look at the ink going down in a single layer, in 3 layers. I'm going to blend the marker into another similar color of its own brand. We're going to run a colorless blender over it. We're going to look at how much it bled through from the other side of the paper. We're going to pass it over this dry Copic multiliner. I used Copic multiliner for that. And then I'm going to scribble down a fresh spot of multiliner, and we're going to see how it handles going over freshly drawn line art. We're then going to do the same test over graphite. Then we're going to get a little more creative and fun. We're going to see what happens when we use these white gel pens on top. We're going to see how well the gel pens go down, and then we're going to wait a sec and see if the gel pen ink starts to pick up the color from the marker ink. I have a Jelly Roll Bold and a Uniball Signo. Then we're going to look at what happens when you put colored pencil down on top of it, specifically white colored pencil. I have a Prismacolor Premier, I've got a Polychromos and a Goldfaber. I have a very old Laurentian white. This is a good stand-in to compare to Crayola. I have a Joseph Hartmut, and then I have a Marco Raffine sketch. Then I'm going to comment on how much it smells. This is a rating out of 10, and then we're going to give it an overall rating. So let's get started. We are starting with the industry standard Copics. I found all of these price listings on dickblick.com, so this is what you'll find online and in any Blick store. The listing price, which is the suggested retail price from the manufacturer, is $7.99 for both the original and the sketch. The Ciao is a bit cheaper because it's a bit smaller. The list price is $5.49. However, Blick sells them everyday low price, $5.24 for the original and sketch, and the Ciao is knocked down $3.59. The Copic original has a chisel nib, and it has a bullet nib. This is what they look like. This is also known as broad and fine, and I actually find, surprisingly enough, that when I use these ones, I use the chisel more than the fine. Copic does sell refills, so you can get refill ink. They're called various inks, and of course they also sell replacement nibs, and they sell tweezers and kits to help you do that if you can't do it on your own. Here we have a single layer versus 3 layers. I've done all of these layers with the chisel because all of the markers have chisel. As you can see, single layer, you get a bit of start and stop on the chisel. That's to be expected, but overall it's pretty smooth. And once you get 3 layers, that start and stop's pretty much gone. It's very nice and smooth, and the value has definitely darkened up. I only have 3 of the originals. I got them in a SketchBox, and they are not ideal blending partners to one another. For those of you who don't know, Copic has an interesting little labeling system that's quite helpful. This does not completely apply to the earth tones, the E's, but it does apply to everything else. The letters are the color family, so this is where the color fits on the color wheel. This number, the first one you see, is the blending group. So it refers to the saturation within the color family. And the last number is the specific value. This is the value scale within the blending group within the color family. BG05 will blend very, very well with anything from BG000 all the way down to BG09. So with that in mind, my original here is B00 Frost Blue, and I'm blending into B02 Robin's Egg Blue. That just melts together so nice. It's even nicer on these two. You will see in a sec, I promise. Colorless blender. So Copic's colorless blender does what most things called a colorless blender does. It dilutes the pigment, lifts it a bit. The colorless blender is essentially just the alcohol base. So you can go over it to lighten things, make interesting patterns. This is how much that bled through. Let's go over the dry liner. It's perfectly fine. Let's make some wet liner marks. Does really well. Of course, Copic on Copic should do well. It does not, however, like graphite. We're going to scribble down gel pen now, and then we're going to come back to talking about it when it comes time to rate them. I'm going to do the overall rating for all of them at the end after we've tested everything, and that'll just give the gel pen ink enough time to soak up the color underneath if it's going to do it. And let's do some colored pencil scribbling. Oh yeah, that's a pastel pencil. Macro Raffiné Sketch is a pastel pencil. So there you go, it shows them all pretty well except for the Joseph Hartmut, but I predict that's going to be a common thing among all of them because that's a very hard lead. Smell, you really have to get up in these to smell them. Kids, don't sniff your markers. So I rate it a 3, and of course that's going to be the same for all of the Copics. Moving on to the Sketch, prices are the same as the original. This is what it looks like. It has that chisel as always, but of course it has the brush. Did I talk about the design on those? Design on the original, as we discussed, it does not have a brush. It is a square shape, great labeling, and the caps, if you care about such things, go on top of each other very nicely. Really, my complaint about this is that there's no brush. The Copic Sketch, it's an oval barrel. Doesn't roll unless you push it because it's fairly flat on either side. Again, really good labeling, but if you care about such things, the caps don't stay on the ends. I don't have an ideal blending pair for any of my sketches. I don't have that many yet, so we're blending RV13 Tender Pink into RV21 Light Pink. There we go. Nice, beautiful one-to-one blend. Time for Copic Ciao. These are the little guys. They don't hold as much ink, but because of that, they are cheaper. They do come with that brush, as well as, of course, the chisel. They are a round barrel. They have these little stops on the cap, but not super effective. They also don't have anything on the ends here. You would have to make stickers like Bailey J does, but they are very clearly labeled on the barrel. The caps do go on the ends. Ideal blending pair, we have V12, which is Pale Lilac, and we are blending that to V15 Mallow. There we go. Look at those beautiful Copic blends. Winsor and Newton time, here they are. They make both a pro marker and a brush marker. Both of them have the chisel. The pro marker has a bullet nib. The brush marker, as the name suggests, has a brush nib. These brush nibs are a whole lot softer and more flexible than the Copics. I find I don't have as much control because they're just a little bit too floppy. but I do really like them. They are excellent. They were my favorite before I got Copic. On Blick, the suggested list price is $4.99, so wow, even cheaper than the Copic Ciaos, and they are selling them for $3.59, same price as the Copic Ciaos. As I mentioned, they do come in brush or bullet nib on this end, always chisel nib on this end. They are a round barrel, and their stops are a little more effective. All of their labeling is stickers, which I do fault them for. At least they've got the label on this end, but then there's nothing on this end because it's that weird bullet shape, which is a good and a bad thing because I never take off the wrong cap on these. You can feel that this is obviously not the chisel end. This end will kinda sorta, if you force it, sit on there, but then it pops off. Yeah, and this one is not going to go on that end. Winsor Newton does not sell refills or replacement nibs. They do intend for you to buy brand new markers when these die. You could replace them with other brand stuff, but then it wouldn't really match. Up to you. At this price, if you're committed to these, I would just replace them. Here's what a single pass and 3 passes looks like. Not as much of a tonal shift as these ones. And it doesn't really even get rid of those start and stops on the ends with that chisel. The brush, you're not going to see that. The chisel, you are. 1-to-1 blend, I have Apple and Meadow Green. They are 1 number off each other. I don't know if Winsor Newton numbers like Copic does strategically or not, but they are very close. Another thing about these caps that aren't labeled, I don't know if I've ever put the caps back on the right markers or not. How can I know? So that's their 1-to-1 blend. It's very nice. I do like them for a reason, guys. Colorless blender. I just accidentally tested the blender over our gradient. So here's a replacement for us to talk about later. This is the Winsor and Newton blender. I constantly think it's a black marker because there is so much black on it. Like, Copic blender, it's plain. Winsor Newton blender is black. As you can see, the Winsor Newton blender reacts a lot more than Copic does, and it doesn't do as much of this blotchy, cloudy thing. And there's the bleed through from the other side. Definitely worse than the Copics. I don't know if you can tell on camera, it's not, there it is. The Winsor Newton does smudge liners, all liners, not just the Copic. Particularly this Staedtler, it's really bad with the Staedtler pigment liners for some reason, if you don't let it dry for a long time first. There we go, that's what the gel pen looks like fresh, and these are all of our white pencils. Once again, it's just the Joseph Hartman that's not doing too well. Scent, it's a little bit stronger than the Copics when you get up close and personal with it, but you're not smelling it across the room or anything. Spectra AD, or Spectra AD, however you want to pronounce that. They are distributed by Chartpak. I could not find them listed on Blick, and I will give you my theory why in a sec. On Jerry's Artorama, the suggested retail price is $5.60 US, and they sell them everyday price for $3.77, and they go lower on special sales. My theory here, Spectra AD and the Blick Studio Brushmarkers look exactly alike, especially when you look at the European distributed Spectra AD, because they are white. And if you take all of these Spectra ADs and you look at the color names and the color numbers, compare them to Blick Studio, it all matches up. They're identical in every way, so I think that Blick Studio markers are a private labeling of the Spectra AD, and that's why Blick doesn't sell them. Their stuff is listed at $4.99 suggested price, and they're selling them for $2.96 each. They have a brush and a chisel. They're an octagon, squashed octagon barrel. They don't really roll anywhere. The caps are never going to stay on the end if you care about that. They do have excellent labeling, although I wish the color name was on the ends on the North American distributed ones. It is on the European distributed ones. I got these ones from a Scrawler box. Go check out that video. I'll have it up in the iCard. Blick sells refills and replacement nibs. Spectra doesn't, but like I said, they're the same thing. Now, my one major design complaint about these markers, you can see it better on the white barreled ones. This indicator line is on the chisel side. This is the only marker brand I know of that does that. Besides, of course, the Blick Studio, because they're the same thing. So here's the single layer and the triple layer. Much like the Copics, layering it up gets rid of those start and stop marks on the chisel, and it does darken it a bit. Blending apple green into dark green. I have no idea if there's a rhyme or reason to the color numbering, but they are close, so I figured they might work. It takes a bit more work, but they do start to blend. That is going to have to dry a bit. Again, I haven't really played with these to see what the ideal blending shades are, and I don't own all of the colors. But that's pretty good. The Acohol is definitely reacting with itself. They blend perfectly with Copic. I use them alongside Copic all the time. I only have their colorless blender because Scrawlerbox sent it to me. I have not seen it in any of their smaller sets, but you can buy it open stock. Pretty much identical to the Copic blender. Before I owned a Copic blender, I did use this blender on the Copics. The Winsor Newton blender does weird things to Copic. You'll get a dark ridge line where you've stopped using the blender. You don't with the Spectra because it behaves identical. There's the liner and graphite tests. It does excellent on top of the liner and it smears the graphite. That's to be expected. There's the gel pen and colored pencils. Pretty much the same. They definitely do have a much stronger smell when you get up and personal with them. I don't find they stink up the room too bad, but when you get close they are much stinkier, like twice as stinky. Let's talk about Double Line by Genvana. I got a 12 set of these off of, it was either Wish or AliExpress. If you find these has a single marker listing on any of the Asian marketplace sites, when I say that I mean Wish, AliExpress, Banggood, all of those, you're probably getting ripped off. You have to buy them in the sets to get a good deal. Keep in mind, though, that these sets build upon each other, so the 12 set is in the 24 set, the 24 set is in the 36 set, and so on. It's not worth getting the 24 after the 12, because you're going to get all of the same colors, and then the grays. Just the grays. The price works out to about $139 per marker in the sets. They have a brush and a chisel. They are an octagon barrel, but a round-ended cap. They don't roll. They have very good labeling, number and color name on the ends. The caps do go on the ends. And of course they have a brush, which is great. But these things grab the paper like nobody's business. I don't know why, but it doesn't make for a very pleasant coloring experience. And no, you cannot get refills for these. Here's 1 layer and 3 layers. Not much for a stop and start mark, but there's no difference in the build-up there, is there? For blending, I know that this is a bad choice for blending, but these are the only 2 blues I have, and that's not any better. That is not a blend. Not at all. I don't have a blender. You can't buy a blender open stock. You'd have to buy a pretty large set to get one. So I'm going to put a little C here just to remind us that we are testing with Copic for the sake of testing a blender. There we go. Not a whole lot on the quick strokes, but scrubbing it did do something. Not only did that do absolutely terrible with the wet liner, it actually smudged the dry liner. If you can see it. And of course it smudged the graphite. We're not surprised about that. There's those. We'll come back to the gel pen. These are the stinkiest markers in the bunch. You can smell them across the house. They smell like whiteboard markers, dry erase markers, which is odd. That's not at all what I expect this type of marker to smell like. SketchBox Signature. I'm reviewing this one because I have it, but keep in mind that this was sent out by SketchBox in their November box. They do not currently make any other color, they don't make any other grays, they don't make any other colors, they don't make a blender. It's literally just this marker right now. But if you want it, you can buy it individually for $6.99 US. It has a brush, it has a chisel. The caps do stick on the ends of each other. It's a nice square barrel, very similar to the Copic original. It doesn't roll away. Very good labeling. So, hard to tell with such a dark color, but here's the 1 and 3 layers. Start and stop marks do not go away after 3 layers. It does build up a bit, pretty smooth other than those start and stop marks. For the blend test, I'm going to blend into a Copic marker because, again, I only have one. Since this is neutral gray 8, let's go neutral gray 5. So there's that blend with the Copic. Pretty good blend. We're going to use Copic's colorless blender on it. Reacts the same as a Copic does to the Copic blender. It's a really good Copic dupe, really. Sketchbox should put out more and lower that price. Here's the bleed through, comparable to the Copics and the Spectra again. Liner did okay. Can't really see the graphite to say anything, but I'm assuming it has smudged. Stinkiness goes on par with the Spectra AD. Moving on to Touch 5 and Touch New. These are both a ripoff of Touch, which is a ripoff of Copic. When you order these on all of the Asian market sites, sometimes they will tell you which brand you are getting. Sometimes that is what you get. Sometimes that's not what you get. Sometimes it's what you get, but the bag says the other name. They are interchangeable. They're just a different barrel. They have the same color names and color codes. They go down the same. They look the same. I prefer the Touch News purely because of the cap length, which I will comment on again, and because out of the two, when I've ordered them, the 5s tend to have more dry ones and tend to have them die faster. When you work out the price per marker in a set, they're anywhere from 39 to 50 cents per marker. If you are going to buy them individually, you are going to get ripped off. I got this one individually, and I definitely got ripped off because I thought I was getting a sample pack of like 3 or 5 markers, but no, I just got one and I didn't even get to choose the color. It's melon yellow. This Touch 5 is a square barrel. They're trying to make you think it is the Copic original, and if that's what they're trying to make you think, then, you know, bullet, chisel, okay. The newer design, I'm assuming it's the newer design because this is what you normally see. It's also a square barrel, but it's got this tapering thing going on with the caps. You can stick them to each other, which is nice. That ridge on the cap helps with that. You cannot get a brush in these. The Touch News, the caps are longer, the neck on this is longer. The caps do go on the other end, but they end up being such a tight fit you might just pull the other cap off. I've brought out this one because I'm going to tell you why I prefer the caps on the Touch New. Check out this video up here in the iCard if you haven't seen it. I featured this marker in the Cheap to Copic video that I did. You can, although these brands will never sell you replacement ink or replacement nibs, you can put other brands' replacement nibs in these. It's quite easy. I have a Copic brush nib in here. The reason I prefer this cap length is because this cap will accommodate the longer Copic brush nib. This cap won't. It will squish the end. That's not a problem if you go with the chameleon brush nibs, because those are shorter. And yes, a viewer who saw my cheap to Copic and tried it did use the chameleon, so they do work as well. They do have really good labeling, the color and the numbers on the ends. Color accuracy, the color ink you get usually does not match the cap. Single layer, triple layer. Start and stop marks do kind of disappear in the third layer. As you can see, the Touch 5 is already dying, as I mentioned. Very little tonal buildup on that melon yellow. You see it a bit more on that pink. For the Touch 5, I am blending Vivid Pink into Azalea Purple. Just by those names alone, you would think that they don't blend, but they do. And for the Touch New, I am blending Vermilion into French Vermilion. So there's both of those blends. They're blending fairly well. I would say the Vermilions are doing better. But that's probably because one of these Touch 5s, again, is dying. This is a Touch New colorless blender. I bought a 3-pack. They're all dying. This one, not only is it dying, it is taken on color for something, and I cannot get that off. And 2 out of 3 have very loose caps on this end, which is probably why they're dead. I seriously think it made that brown darker. And it hasn't really done much to the peacock green at all. Here's the bleed through. Don't mind this being a second layer. I colored on the wrong side, so I had to get a different piece. So we have a little bit of bleeding on the fresh liner, nothing on the dry liner. That's pretty good. And these do the best for not harming the graphite. It smudges it a little bit, but it's the best ones. There's the gel pen and the colored pencil. They're fairly average for stinky. The Touch News, since they're a little more alive, a little more juicy, are also a little bit stinkier. Sta and Bianyo. I am pretty sure that this is yet another private labeling deal, but I don't know which one is the original and which one is the copy. I ordered Sta. I thought I was ordering a Bianyo, and I thought I was getting a single marker to test. The kicker was in the shipping. The individual marker price was not bad. When you order them in a set on all of the Asian market sites like AliExpress, they work out to about 91 cents per marker. They are a brush and a chisel. Here's the chisel, big fat chisel. Here's the brush. It is a very nice feeling brush, comparable to Copic. They're a triangular barrel, so they don't roll too far. Sure, make a liar out of me. They are super long though. Compare that to the Copics. Oh, also the caps don't go on each other. The sticker here, which is a sticker, it peels, is the only place that has the color name. There is a pigment number over here, and the caps say 3. You cannot get replacements or refills for either of these. 1 layer, 3 layers. No change. For blending, I am going to blend it into Copic Carmine because I only have the one Sta. So there's that blend to Copic. Pretty nice. I am going to use the Bianyo colorless blender because I'm pretty sure these are the same thing. That reaction reminds me of the Winsor Newton ones. There is a little bit of smudging on that wet liner. It didn't do anything to the dry liner. It smudged the graphite. There's the pencil. I decided to just go ahead and do it on the Bianyo as well. I bought the Bianyo markers as a skin tone set. This is warm gray. And this is what we get in a skin tone set. Does anybody else see a problem with this skin tone set? This one did build a bit between 1 and 3. That's probably because it's a lighter color. You can still see the stop and start points on that chisel. We are blending quince into salmon. Fairly nice blend. Colorless blender. Nice dramatic reaction like the Winsor Newton. Here's the bleed through. Here's our smudge tests. It did do a little bit of smudging on the wet liner, nothing on the dry. it did smudge graphite exactly the same, and I already showed you this. The smell, the Sta was pretty average. The Bianyos are surprisingly pleasant. They're not even as stinky as the Copics when you get up close and personal. By the way, this is 110-pound cardstock, so some of the things that were fairly consistent across all of the markers: the colored pencil, the hard, cheaper Joseph Hartmut really struggled. Everything else did okay. Graphite did not like any of them really, although Touch 5 and Touch New did surprisingly well, and we can't really judge SketchBox Signature because our one and only shade is so dark. Copics. These are the industry standard for a reason. They have excellent design, they are available in the brush nib if you want it, but if you like the bullet nib, you can still go with the original. Blender does what alcohol blenders are supposed to do, despite that deceptive name. Here's the bleed on cardstock. This did bleed through the cardstock, but it would not affect something underneath it. It gets along well with fine liner, does not get along with graphite pencil. Gel pen went down very well. This is not giving the gel pen any color at all. This is giving some to the Signo, it's giving more to the... Okay, in person, it's giving more to the Sakura Jelly Roll. Doesn't look that way on camera. I think that's just because the Jelly Roll seems so much softer when it's dry. You can see on the purple, the Jelly Roll really picked up the color. Signo didn't. This is why I prefer Signo when I'm working on marker. Second least stinky. They are the industry standard. The brush markers get a 10. The original gets a 9. Winsor and Newton, excellent alternative. They are cheaper. They have brush and bullet options, depending on what you want. They tend to push the Pro Marker more, which is the bullet nib, and they used to be Letraset. Winsor Newton recently bought that, so if you have Letraset, it is the same thing. You cannot get refills. Stickers on the barrel, which I don't like, but I do like the fact that I never pull the wrong cap off because of the shape of them. They do blend nicely with themselves. Here's what their blender does. It's more dramatic. One of the worst bleed-throughs. They smear a little bit on that Copic multiliner, and it's not just Copic multiliner. I've noticed it doing that on everything except microns. Does not get along with graphite. Both of these are picking up some color, a little bit stinkier. I'm going to give them a 7 out of 10. Spectra AD, mid-range price, really cheap if you go with the Blick Studio labeled ones. They have brush and chisel. I believe Blick also has a bullet nib marker. I'm not sure what that's a private label of. I haven't looked into it. Nice barrel shape, very good labeling. They have brush. They are a Blick dupe, so you can get refills if you get the Blick stuff. Caps don't go on the ends, but if you don't care, whatever. This is what the blend looked like with one another, with not ideal color choices. It's okay. They blend very well with Copic. I do use these with Copic all the time. Here's what their blender does, very much like Copic. Here's the bleed through, very much like Copic. Get along well with the liner, wet or dry, don't get along with graphite. It is giving a little bit of color to both gel pens. It's stinkier. But all in all, I do like these better than the Winsor Newton, ever so slightly. Double line. Oh boy. Grabby brush, stink to high heaven, no refills. You can't get a colorless blender unless you buy a really big set. For what they are, for the cheaper Asian brands, they're pretty expensive per marker in a set. There's no value build there at all. That is not a blend. They don't do a heck of a lot with Copic's blender. They don't bleed through excessively, but the color that does come through is full color. They do murder on both dry and wet liner, and they don't get along with graphite. The Jelly Roll is surprisingly resisting picking up that color, but the Signo is not. And again, they are the stinkiest marker out there. I give them a 4 out of 10. Do not recommend, do not buy. SketchBox Signature. These are basically a Copic dupe. They are very, very good. They are not lending any color at all to that gel pen, but there's only one of them right now, so I have to fault them on that. 6 out of 10. Touch 5 and Touch New. Not a lot of buildability. They do blend with themselves. Here's the bleed through, one of the worst we've seen. Little teeny bit of smearing on the wet liner, not bad. Best graphite reaction we have seen. They are both giving color to both types of gel pen. The Touch 5 is slightly stinkier, but it's also juicier. So 5.5 to the Touch 5 because of how many dead ones I have. 6 to the Touch New. That's really not fair for Sketchbox. Let's change that to 7. Sta and Bianyo. Sta is a little bit cheaper for a brush marker from these companies. Bianyo is not. I don't know why. They appear to be a private labeling situation. You get a brush and a chisel. They are triangular barrels. They don't roll too bad. They are super, super long. They've got great brush tips. Very bad labeling situation. The caps do not go on each other. This is a blend with Copic because I don't have any other Sta. This is a blend with Bianyo to Bianyo. Very good. This is using Bianyo colorless blender that looks a lot like Winsor Newton. Here's the bleed through, again like Winsor Newton. They're doing a little bit of smudging on the wet liner, nothing on the dry. They are smudging on the graphite. The Sta is horrible for giving color to that gel pen. The Bianyo is resisting it a bit more. That may be the pigment. For some reason, Bianyo smells wonderful. Sta is average. All in all though, I rate them the same. I give them 6s. They're on par with the Touch New. It's really just a matter of do you want a brush or not. And there we have it. Obviously, Copic are the kings, but very good alternatives are the Winsor Newton and the Spectra AD. If Sketchbox Signature released a full color line and dropped that price, they would also be up there. Do not buy Double Line by Genvana. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it informative, and I will see you on Thursday with a new video. Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought of this. Did anything surprise you? Are there any other brands you would like me to get to try when I redo this in the future? Hit like, subscribe, ring the bell. See you on Thursday. Bye guys.